Hi, everybody. Welcome to Davidson, North Carolina, and a beautiful fall day here. I wanted to talk to you about a very timely topic since it is fall, which is tax planning. Everybody's favorite topic. Now, a lot of stuff's happened in 2020, and I think we're all looking to have this year get put behind us. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Adam Boatsman, the managing partner of BGW. And right now, we're in the middle of tax planning or starting the tax planning process for all of our business clients. And obviously, we're having a lot of questions around the election this year and what's going to happen with tax rates. We don't really know. All we do know is that tax rates generally aren't retroactive. So if there is going to be a tax rate increase, it probably will occur with the 2022 tax year, because that's when it would be passed legislatively, sometime in 2021 for the 2022 tax year. And that regardless of the administration, whether it's 2022 or 2025, what it'll probably look like is a repeal of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which passed a couple years back. So, or some other format that does some changes to individual rates along with the business rates. So what that effectively means is that we could be looking at, probably in the neighborhood of a 5 to 10% effective tax rate increase after it's all said and done, probably close to the 10% side, because that's what the effect would be of completely rolling back the act for flow-through entities like partnerships and S corporations at the highest possible effective rate. So with that in mind, a lot of the plans that we had in place for tax planning would revolve around deferring taxes until a future date, with the theory that time value money, a dollar today that I can hang on to growing pre-tax, is worth more to me than having that same dollar post-tax grow at the same rate. Well, that's a great case. That's exactly how retirement plans work, and why you do a pre-tax retirement plan. And if you're going to do a Roth plan post-tax, the reason you do that is you're betting on a tax rate change, or you want some already tax money already out there on the table. Still a great idea. Well, in this case, the tax deferral mechanism, whether it's the classic deferrals that we might see, like paying a bill at the end of December that you've been paying in December, that could have equally been paid in January because it's recurring in nature. And even retirement planning itself, by contributing to 401k or doing a profit sharing match, all of that is really predicated on the concept that tax rates will be the same or lower in the future. Well, now I think we can pretty well count on a tax rate increase. So the value of a tax deferral has somewhat diminished as a tax planning strategy, because, as I'm going to show you in the following examples, you got to hang on to that money and have it working pretty hard for quite a while on the assumption that you're going to have a tax rate increase before pre-tax, post-tax rates of return start to equalize. So it's just a thought that we had in mind as we get into this tax planning season, is that if you have cash where you could otherwise take some deferred tax money off the table that we've been keeping deferred for a while, it's time to really start thinking about that as a concept. Because again, our role as tax professionals and your CPA is really to help you manage your lifetime tax liability. And that's a combination of today's taxes, future taxes, estate taxes, really all taxes that you're going to pay as a business owner. And this is one of those cases where it might make sense to actually pay some taxes today to really maximize your rate of return relative to keeping the money deferred into the future and then having the risk that there's going to be a tax rate increase. And again, in the past, if people ask me what are the odds of a tax rate increase, I'd say, something really punitive, probably not too bad, not too great. But I feel fairly certain that as we start to recover, some members of the House and Senate change hands, even if there's a wholesale administration change, even if there's not a wholesale administration change, at some point they're probably going to have to go up to pay for the stimulus that we've put in place in order to lower the deficit spending that we've had. So just a thought in mind as we get into this tax planning season in terms of really looking at those deferrals, as I'm about to show you in the following examples. Hey guys, so following up on the
example about what kind of rate you would have to get as a rate of return pending a tax law change, which resulted in an increase. So this example shows what would happen with a 20% rate of return. And let's assume that we've got a tax rate increase right here in 2022, and it goes up by 10%. So, and let's say the amount we're deferring is $100. We're going to keep it really simple. So if we pay just the tax rate at 30%, we've got a net amount of $70 in our pocket to reinvest. Or alternatively, if we defer the money, we've now got $100 to grow. So in the deferral example, this $100 creates 20 additional dollars, which then rolls up here to be $120. And we've got a deferred tax liability that keeps growing and growing and growing to result in a net of this number if we're to cash in all the chips and say, okay, look, let's go ahead and pay the taxes. Versus, go ahead and change colors on us here. In the went ahead and paid the tax scenario, we went ahead and paid the tax, we got $70. We reinvest that at 20%. We've got $14. But now the only thing really taxed is the $14 because the 70 was already taxed. Therefore, we now have $79.80. So what you can see here is that when this tax rate increase hits right here, whoa, wait a second here. We actually made less money than had we gone ahead and paid the taxes. So really what this demonstrates is that for this to really work for you, you got to keep on deferring that money out, assuming the same fixed rate of return of 20% that you're getting on the money giving this type of tax rate change scenario. If all of a sudden you change this over to 10%, same sort of scenario, same sort of math, it just means that your investment window really has to change where, somewhere here in 2025, you start to see that's where the things start to equal out, whereby going forward you have more money. So that's given a 10% rate of return. Again, this assumes a fixed rate whereby that the rate that you get pre-tax is going to be the same rate that you get post-tax. Well, in a retirement plan, that's probably going to be the case. But when it comes to evaluating between two investment options, which is this scenario over here, what happens when I've got one investment option that's pretty risky and another investment option that's not as risky, like the stock market or a bond fund? Well, what this shows is that if I've got, an 8% rate of return on the really risky thing, which seems counterintuitive, but I'm going to get there in a second. What this one shows is that, man, I really got to wait till the very end of time before I'm in the money on this baby, relative to just going ahead and taking the hit, taking the safe bet, paying the taxes, and moving it on in the lower risk investment. Obviously, this is done at an assumption of an 8.8% rate of return. So how do we get there when, in theory, I'm reinvesting in my business or reinvesting in a piece of real estate or something else that's speculative? Well, obviously, if I can get a 20% pre-tax growth rate relative to a 10% post-tax growth rate, I ought to do it because as we showed here, back in the 20% scenario, I start to get in the money after the first year or so. So obviously, if I have I'll go back here. If I have a lower rate on the post-tax money than I do the pre-tax, then obviously this scenario is going to get even better. It's going to pay itself back real quick. But the problem is, if I'm evaluating something that's got some risk in it, you really have to look at the risk-rated rate of return. So to give you an example, let's say I've got a 20% rate of return, but 50% of the time, I'm going to get zero out of it. That really means that my adjusted rate of return is 10%. So when you're evaluating should I defer taxes or not, you know, the rate of return is really important, but equally as important is the risk associated with the rate of return, which is really my pre-tax rate and my post-tax rate. So if I'm evaluating something really risky pre-tax relative to something not very risky post-tax, I just have to factor that in, given that I know that there's probably going to be a tax rate increase. If there wasn't going to be a tax rate increase, then this isn't as important. But with the tax rate increase pending, it's just really something that we got to start to think about. So hopefully this helps you out as we start talking about tax planning. And if we give you the advice that, hey, maybe it's time to start thinking about taking some chips off the table, going ahead and paying the taxes, that isn't meant to say that we're lazy and we don't want to think about anything. We still want to be the same legally aggressive people that we've always been. It's just that, again, our job is to help you out over your lifetime as a taxpayer to make the most money, save money, stay out of trouble, take the least amount of risk that you can stomach, or the most amount of risk that you can stomach for the best rate of return. And this is just one of those cases where the variables changed. So that means that our advice needs to change with it. So thanks a lot. Hope this was helpful.